Why do we continue making bad decisions even when logic tells us to stop? From staying in failing investments to holding on to toxic relationships, our brains often lead us down irrational paths. Two major cognitive biases, the sunk cost fallacy and the gambler's fallacy, are at the heart of these mistakes. In this video, we'll break down how these mental traps work with real-world examples and why we fall for them so easily. 1. The sunk cost fallacy. When past investments cloud judgment. The sunk cost fallacy is a psychological trap where people continue with a failing decision simply because they've already invested resources, money, time, effort into it. Instead of evaluating choices based on future benefits, we irrationally focus on the past costs that we can't recover. Example, the concert ticket dilemma. Imagine you bought an expensive concert ticket weeks ago, but now it's pouring rain, you feel sick, and you don't even enjoy the artist that much anymore. Rationally, staying home would be the better option, but because you already paid, you feel obligated to go, despite it making you miserable. That's the sunk cost fallacy in action. Everyday examples of the sunk cost fallacy. Sticking with a failing business because you've already invested too much. Continuing a long-term relationship even when it's making you unhappy. Holding on to bad stocks because selling feels like admitting defeat. Finishing a boring book or movie just because you started it. Staying in a dead-end job because you've already spent many years building a career there. Pursuing a college major you dislike because you've already completed several years of study. And keeping a car with high repair costs instead of replacing it simply because you already spent money on past repairs. A costly lesson, the Concorde project. Even governments fall victim to this bias. The Concorde, a supersonic jet, was a financial disaster from the start. But instead of cutting their losses, British and French governments continued investing billions simply because they had already spent so much. The result? More losses and eventual cancellation. This example highlights how powerful the sunk cost fallacy can be, influencing not just individuals but entire governments. 2. The gambler's fallacy, when we misinterpret probability. Unlike the sunk cost fallacy, which deals with past investments, the gambler's fallacy revolves around future expectations. It's the mistaken belief that past events influence future probabilities in independent scenarios, especially in games of chance. Imagine you flip a coin 5 times and it lands on heads every time. Many people believe that tails is due on the next flip. But in reality, the odds are still 50-50. Each flip is independent of the previous ones. Everyday examples of the gambler's fallacy. In casinos and gambling, believing a slot machine is hot or overdue for a win. Sports betting. Thinking a team that has lost many games is bound to win. Stock market investing. Assuming a declining stock must rise soon. And lottery tickets. Believing certain numbers are luckier because they haven't been drawn in a while. On academic performance, thinking a student who has failed multiple tests is bound to pass the next one simply due to previous failures. Dating and relationships, assuming a string of bad dates means a great one must be coming soon. Job interviews, thinking repeated rejections mean you're more likely to get the next job even if each company's decision is independent. A dangerous consequence, the Monte Carlo disaster. One of the most famous examples occurred in a Monte Carlo casino in 1913. During a roulette game, the ball landed on black 26 times in a row. Gamblers lost millions betting on red, convinced it had to happen next, but the odds never changed. The house won, and history recorded one of the worst gambler's fallacy disasters. 3. Why do we fall into these traps? Understanding these fallacies is one thing, but why do our brains fall for them so easily? The answer lies in loss aversion, cognitive bias, and pattern-seeking tendencies. We fear losses more than we value gains. That's why we hold on to the bad investments or our relationships, like we don't want to waste what we've already put in. Our brains love patterns. But in random events like gambling or investing, we see patterns where none exist, leading to faulty decision-making. Many of our decisions are driven by emotions rather than logic. Letting go of a bad decision often feels like admitting failure, which makes us emotionally resistant to cutting our losses. It's the illusion of control. We like to believe we have control over situations, even when we don't. Gamblers believe they can sense when a win is coming, and investors hold on to bad stocks thinking they'll recover. In reality, these beliefs stem from psychological biases rather than actual influence. Commitment bias. Once we invest time, energy, or resources into something, we feel obligated to continue. the deeper we go, the harder it is to stop, like staying in a bad relationship or a losing investment just because we've put in so much already. Social pressure. Sometimes we don't walk away because we're afraid of what others will think, whether it's a business venture, a relationship, or an education path. We stick with it longer than we should because of external expectations. Bad decisions aren't about intelligence. They're about how our brains are wired. The sunk cost and gambler's fallacies trick us, but once we recognize them, we can break free. The key is being aware of these mental traps and challenging our own biases. Next time you hesitate to cut your losses, ask yourself, is this a rational choice or just my brain playing tricks? Don't fall into these common traps. Make decisions based on logic, not emotion. Drop a comment below. What's the worst decision you've made due to these biases? Like, share this, and subscribe for more mind-opening insights.